Okay, welcome to our final Big Stuff podcast of the season. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Sports Indiana with Elton Hayes from CNHI Sports Pennsylvania. And Elton, the world has changed dramatically. A week ago, we were talking about breaking down the Big Ten tournament, and this week we have a global pandemic on our hands. A really scary situation. Up to 173,000 cases worldwide, 4,500 in the United States, and really time to be careful out there and to stay indoors. If that's my public service announcement for the day, that's it. But obviously, all events canceled. Really a surreal week in the world of sports. Hard to compare it. Maybe, in my mind, 9/11. Hurricane Andrew, which I lived through when I was a senior at the University of Miami, but very few instances where you see the entire sports world throughout the country shut down.
It really was. I think you captured it perfectly when you compared it against the tragedy that was 9/11. That's the last time that we've really seen, I guess, a collective effort around the country to really, push aside entertainment and really focus on the things that are, focus on things that are pertinent to people's safety. And it feels like, it's just surreal. That's all I can really say about this. We started the tournament on Wednesday, heading into that Big Ten men's tournament. It was understood that all the games would be played without fans in the arenas. That really, really shifted that evening when the NBA Rudy Gobert tested positive for the coronavirus, and we saw that the NBA really put a moratorium on all of its games, suspended its season, and that really ratcheted it up. The situation with Fred Hoiberg, the Nebraska coach, who had to prematurely leave his game, went to the hospital. People really wondered if it was coronavirus related. Come to find out it was a flu, but I think that really just shocked and scared the world and sports world into submission. And, it's better to be safe than sorry. I know a lot of fans weren't that happy with the NCAA and the Big Ten's decision, but ultimately it was the right one to make.
Yeah, because I think what would have happened was, people are pointing to kind of Rudy Gobert as a tipping point, and it was at that point in time. But I think obviously what would have happened was as this disease spread, things would have been canceled anyway. As the numbers exponentially grew to where they are now, and as gatherings cut down, it would have happened eventually.
It was inevitable. It was inevitable.
Yeah, exactly. It was inevitable. It probably would have happened on a Friday or a Saturday, but it would have happened. Maybe you would have played a few more games, but would have really been worth it. Really to put the student athletes at risk. And that's the thing. Kevin Warren, he was the first commissioner to cancel a conference tournament, and everyone kind of followed suit with the dominoes with regards to it. And you got to give Kevin Warren credit, because Kevin Warren has said from day one when he was introduced, he would always put the welfare of the student athletes first, and he did that in that instance, and he deserves a lot of praise, I think.
Yeah, for someone who was new to the job, we really didn't have much time to get his feet wet. I think he handled it the best way that he could have. Like you mentioned, the Big Ten was really on the forefront of just getting ahead of this stuff, and kind of set the standard for the rest of the country. After the Big Ten announced it, we saw the Big 12 followed suit, the Pac-12 followed suit, the SEC, but the Big Ten in the state of Ohio, really, because with Governor Mike DeWine kind of canceling all events, sporting events, or telling people to stay away from them in his state. And we know that was one of the sites for the NCAA tournament. So Ohio and the Big Ten was really kind of in the forefront of taking the lead on these safety measures and precautions.
Yeah, and, full disclosure, if you heard the podcast last week, I was pretty raspy to say the least, and I got checked out by a doctor on Wednesday. Didn't have COVID symptoms, but I did stay away from the arena on Wednesday when Indiana played. As you know, I normally cover the Hoosiers because I just didn't want to be that guy that showed up with a raspy voice or a cough.
You would have gotten the Fred Hoiberg treatment.
Exactly. So I didn't want to be that guy, Elton, and I think I made the right decision. But it was, the two games that were played. Obviously, Minnesota pulled away. Rick Pitino, by the way, had the line of the night. in discussing the next day. At that time, it looked like they were going to not play in front of fans the next day. And somebody asked him what it was like, and he said, "Well, I coached at FIU. I had a lot of experience playing games not in front of fans, which was great."
I'm sure that kind of
FIU.
Stoked up the hornet's nest down there in South Florida.
Yeah. FIU is a kind of a small commuter school down there, and as a University of Miami grad, I got a chuckle out of that. Because we're kind of semi-rivals, even though they got us in football this year. But anyway, so that was, and then Indiana, obviously, in a must-win situation for their NCAA tournament hopes. Really, started out a little shaky, but pulled away in the second half and had a big win. And at 20-12, it looked like they were going to go to the NCAA tournament. I mean, they basically, in examining all the brackets, I think 59 out of 60 had them in. They might have lost to Penn State the next day. They might have beaten Penn State because Penn State was kind of losing 5 of their last 6. But I think they probably would have gotten in as a 10 or 11 team. It would have been a huge shot in the arm to Archie Miller and his program, but not to be because of the cancellation.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing about this entire situation, outside of the health concerns of the people who were battling it, was just the fact that it's an incomplete season. You had a lot of teams who were looking for that last bit of momentum to capture, going into the tournament play. I know Penn State was one of those teams after losing, I believe, 4 of its last 5 games that really looked forward to kind of starting its second season and, going into that tournament with momentum. But I think that's the theme across the country, not just in the Big Ten. A lot of teams were, they were shut down early, and that's really, really unfortunate for the seniors. I know the NCAA last Friday announced it would offer a relief to spring sport athletes, but basketball is winter sport, Kevin. So, and I really don't know the best way they can do it, because if you look at granting eligibility to winter sport athletes, I mean, a lot of those sports have already concluded. In basketball, for all intents and purposes, the regular season's concluded. So you're going to tell those guys to come back and play the tournament all season just to play the tournament and then the Big Ten tournament. And then you're looking at the guys who are possibly, teetering on the point of either leaving or staying. So it's just unfortunate all around.
Do you think Lamar Stevens would come back for another year if given the opportunity, or do you think that he has pro aspirations now?
I think, as much as he loves being at Penn State, and as much as that really means a lot to him, he did that last year by coming back after testing the waters in the NBA draft. I think he would leave, and I don't blame him. He carried a lot of the office's water this season. He looked to be really worn down at the end of the year, and I think if given the opportunity, he'd probably say farewell to Penn State.
Yeah, and it was really a banner year for the Big Ten because it looked like with Indiana's win that they were going to have 10 teams on the field, and I wrote about this today. There's a financial impact to this in terms of how the tournament distributes revenue, and it's distributed kind of in a complex manner called units. But each unit is worth $280,000, but you get it in 6 years installments. So basically, for making the tournament, you get $1.69 million total. You had 10 teams, so you're talking about at least $16.9 million in revenue the Big Ten lost. And as teams advance, they get up to 5 units, basically up to the Final Four. So I mean, you're talking about upwards of $30 to $40 million of revenue potentially. Yeah. If Michigan State made a run, if Maryland made a run, if Wisconsin made a run, you're talking about a lot of money lost for the conference.
Yeah, and that's what I say. I do not envy the people who had to make this decision. There's a lot at stake. You're looking at, like you said, a multi-million-dollar. If you're looking at it, big picture-wise, $1 billion industry, and it was just kind of swiped away, with the ruling on Friday. So it's just unfortunate all around.
Yeah, and Elton, when we look back at this season, the season that was in the Big Ten, obviously Penn State and Rutgers were 2 of the bigger surprises. Penn State maybe not so much. I know there were a lot of high expectations even going back to October with Lamar Stevens coming back. But Rutgers and the job that Steve Peichel did, I think really was exemplary. And, my poor friend Cliff Olson, he kept on saying, you wait for the other shoe to drop, and it looked like Rutgers was going to make its first tournament since 1991, and not to be.
It looked like, and like I said, you have the same thing I know here at Pennsylvania. a lot of the fans in State College were really excited to get back to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2011 season. Pat Chambers, this was his, this is his best coaching job since he's been at the school for 9 years. And, like you said, Rutgers had a really good run. Illinois was another team that really turned it on and had a chance to make their first tournament run in a matter of years. And, but I think of all the jobs done in the Big Ten this year, I was most impressed with Steve Peichel and the job he did there at Rutgers. Yeah,
it's interesting though, but Greg Gard ended up getting Coach of the Year, and I know we discussed that a little last week, but you could really make a strong argument for Peichel, for Chambers, for Brad Underwood. There were a lot of people in this league that really did masterful jobs for sure. So, where do you think we go from here, Elton, as a nation? Let's look bigger picture here. It looks like, to me, it looks like an 8-week snow day, pretty much, where you're going to be staying inside and watching Netflix. But, life without sports, how's it going to impact you think?
Well, it definitely makes, when spring football was supposed to start here. Spring football practices were supposed to start this week. Penn State was supposed to have its pro day on Tuesday. So, we've really got to kind of reassess the way we do things and find these stories, because there are stories to be told. The athletes who, their season's stuck in suspension. What are they going to do? How are they training? How are they preparing? I know Penn State football had some new coaching hires over the off season. This kind of puts a setback on that timeline. It's kind of getting that offense implemented here with new offense coordinator Kirk Shiraka, new wide receivers coach Taylor Stubblefield. These are all, and this is going to have an impact heading into the new football season. It definitely will. These are valuable practices. There are 15 spring practices Penn State was scheduled to have, and those are, like you said, for the next 8 weeks at the earliest. Nothing's going to be done. No one's going to be on campus here at least until April 3rd.
Yeah, in Indiana, they had a week of spring practice, and before they pulled the plug, obviously. And it's interesting. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star tweeted today about Indiana was looking into virtual workouts in order to at least have guys like connected, maybe through like Skype or some kind of so that the team could feel some kind of connection. Now, apparently that might fall under the guideline of organized activities, though, in the NCAA, which they've prohibited, but perhaps they could make an exemption in that case. Because, I think that feeling of team, that's what you lose at this time of year. 9/11 was a situation where you were hunkered down, but at least the team was together. Now you have a situation where people are spread apart all over the state or all over the country. So it's hard to keep that connection, and I think that's going to be the hardest thing in team sports is everyone going off in their own way, but managing to stay connected. But there are ways you could do it through cell phones and through technology.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think, or even just maybe playing pickup at a gym, but basketball wise, although who knows if the gyms are going to be closed down next.
Well, I know in State College they are. So. And this is another thing I thought of too. Penn State had 11 early enrollee football players. Guys who came in early as freshmen, and that sets them back a lot. Same thing, I'm sure, with Indiana with its early enrollees.
Yeah, Indiana has 9, and I got a chance to watch one of them. I mean, Dexter Williams looked really nice, really good throwing the football. The new quarterback, I think he's got a bright future. I don't see him unseating Mike Penix yet, but I like the zip on the passes there. So Tom Allen continues to build here football wise, and just getting back to basketball too. I mean, obviously it was going to be the off season, but a lot of these players also preparing for the NBA draft. That's going to get curtailed slightly, perhaps into May.
Pro days.
Season being later. It's going to be tough for a lot of college athletes, particularly the seniors.
Yeah, it is. And something, I know with the pro days coming up, a chance for some of these on the fringe guys to get a good look, get good looks from the scouts. And, they're not going to have an opportunity to do that.
No question. So we're not going to have a guest this week. I tried to get Dr. Anthony Fossey on the phone. We couldn't quite get him.
He's a little tied up right now, right?
I think so. I couldn't find any other infectious disease specialist on short notice.
You don't have Sanjay Gupta's contact in your
No Sanjay Gupta, although I've been watching him quite a bit, watching CNN, as you know, trying to really trying to stay informed. Because I think that's the most important thing. Information is the most important thing this time of year. Stay informed, try to follow the guideline. I know it takes away maybe some of your freedoms, your routine, your civil liberties, but trust me, it's going to be worth it in the long run as we, as a country, get through this.
Yes, no, it is, and you mentioned you mentioned it. It's staying informed, heeding these guidelines. They're not there as suggestions. You know, I know a lot of some states, Washington State, New York, these states that are really battling these large numbers of this epidemic or pandemic now. Actually, have issued guidelines for the safety of its residents, and I think that's the thing. You know, people don't need to be out. They need to practice social distancing, and even if you're not thinking of yourself, think of others. Think of others who you might potentially expose or put in harm's way.
And try to be supportive of healthcare workers too. You know, I have a friend. She's a part-time sports writer here, and she's also a nurse, and she's putting in intense hours, an intense shift, and they are really, on the front lines here, really doing yeoman work. The first responders and the healthcare workers. Try to be nice to them, bake them cookies, do something as a sign of appreciation for them.
Definitely.
All right, Elton. Well, this wraps up another season, our first season in the books on the First and Big Ten, on the Big Stuff podcast, and we'll be back. We'll be back with the First and Big Ten podcast in the fall. Fingers crossed.
Hopefully.
But it's certainly been a lot of fun to share time with you and to break down the conference. And I think as we go, these are only going to get better.
Likewise, Kevin. It's been enjoyable. We've seen a lot of good basketball. We've covered a lot of good stories, and I'm looking forward to doing it again next season.
All right, so that will do it for the Big Stuff podcast. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Sports Indiana with Elton Hayes from CNHI Sports Pennsylvania, signing off.